Unless you want to develop a strong attachment to dinner, choose a DuPont Nonstick. Because whether you spend a little or a lot, you're guaranteed of getting a quality nonstick certified by DuPont.
Decades after 3M dumped toxic chemical waste in the East Metro, PFAS chemicals continue to move underground and contaminate more of the drinking water. Since 2003, more than 2,000 private wells in total have been flagged for having elevated levels of PFAS chemicals in the water.
Even burned food won't stick to Teflon, so it's always easy to clean. Cookware never needs scouring. If it has DuPont, Teflon.
There's a sound we all recognize. A pan heating up, oil hitting the surface, dinner starting. Most health issues don't start overnight. They start slowly, quietly. Sometimes they start in places we never think to question, like the pan we've used for years. Welcome to Beyond Surface Level, the channel that questions what we're told and looks at what's hidden underneath. Today we're talking about the cookware cover-up and what's really leaking into your food. Before we talk about toxins, we have to talk about convenience. Because this didn't start as some evil master plan, it started as a promise. After World War II, America became obsessed with making life easier. Faster meals, less cleanup, no scrubbing pans for 20 minutes after dinner. And then came the miracle, a slippery coating that promised nothing sticks. No burnt eggs, no stubborn residue, just a smooth, shiny surface that made cooking feel effortless. It was marketed as modern, scientific, almost futuristic. Households were told this was progress, a cleaner kitchen, a smarter home, a better life. And honestly, at first, it worked. Who wouldn't trust a product developed by DuPont? Who wouldn't trust Teflon, praised in advertisements, used in aerospace, and sold as completely safe? If it was good enough for space, it must be good enough for scrambled eggs. Here's where the story takes a turn, because the first warning signs didn't show up in the kitchens. They showed up in people. Inside factories where nonstick coatings were produced. Workers began noticing patterns that didn't add up. Not one dramatic illness, not something obvious, but clusters. People who had never smoked developed lung issues, persistent flu-like symptoms that never fully went away, changes in blood chemistry, immune irregularities, hormonal disruptions, and then there were the pregnancies. Higher rates of complications, babies born smaller than expected, birth defects that couldn't be easily explained. At first, none of it seemed connected, because when symptoms are spread across different systems, different timelines, and different people, they're easy to dismiss. Stress, coincidence, genetics. But over time, one common thread became harder to ignore. Exposure. The people getting sick were the same people working closest to the chemicals used to create non-stick coatings. And here's what made it even more confusing. These chemicals didn't affect just one part of the body. They interfered with multiple systems at once. Hormones, immune function, cellular signaling. So the damage didn't show up as one clean diagnosis. It showed up as confusion. And confusion is convenient. Because confusion buys time. Instead of halting production, concerns were handled quietly. Internal studies reviewed behind closed doors. Risk calculated, not in terms of health, but in terms of liability. What could be proven, what could not, and what could stay out of public view? That question shaped everything that followed. Now here's the part most people were never told. Non-stick coatings are stable until they're heated. And cooking, unfortunately, is just controlled heat. When these pans are exposed to high temperatures, especially during preheating or daily use, the coating can begin to degrade. Not melt, not peel dramatically, it breaks down. Tiny particles, invisible fumes, chemical fragments released into the air and onto food. And before anyone says they never cook on high heat, most stovetops don't come with a warning that says you've crossed the unsafe threshold. Preheating an empty pan, cooking on medium-high, using scratched cookware, this is all normal, all common. So this isn't about misuse, it's about design. A product that's only safe under perfect conditions was never really safe to begin with. If cookware were immediately dangerous, we'd all notice. But that's not how this works. These chemicals don't cause instant reactions, they accumulate. Small exposures, repeated daily. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Some of these compounds remain in the body for years, not hours, not days, years. Which means today's exposure stacks on yesterday's and tomorrow's stacks on top of that. That's why the effects are so hard to trace. No one meal is to blame. No single moment sets off alarms. Instead, it shows up as subtle disruption over time. Hormones slightly off. Immune responses slightly weakened. Not dramatic enough to panic over, but significant enough to matter. It's not a sudden crisis, it's a slow drip. So why did these products stay on the market? Because safety doesn't always mean harmless, it means legally defensible. This is where labels like PFOA free come in. PFOA is just one chemical in a much larger family called PFAS. PFAS stand for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce that again. Thousands of man-made chemicals designed to resist heat, water, and oil. Great for cookware, not great for the human body. They're often called forever chemicals because they don't break down easily. Not in the environment, not in your body. So when the PFOA became controversial, it wasn't the end of PFAS. It was just the end of that name. Manufacturers just shifted to different PFAS. Similar chemistry, similar behavior, legally distinct enough to keep selling. Hence the labels. New formula, next generation, improved coating. Then came the phrase, safe when used properly, which sounds reassuring until you realize what it implies. If something goes wrong, it's not the product, it's you. The responsibility quietly shifts from manufacturer to consumer, not because the risk disappeared, but because it was rebranded. At some point, stories like this stop being about companies and start being about everyday moments. It's you cooking dinner after a long day, reaching for the same pan you've always used, not because you chose it carefully, but because it was already there. Most people weren't careless, they were busy, they were trusting, they were doing what felt normal. This information doesn't demand a lifestyle overhaul, it simply invites a pause, a moment to notice how many decisions are made for us long before we ever think to question them. And once you see that, it changes how you move through the world. Not dramatically, not overnight, just with a little more intention than you had before. What stays with me about this story isn't anger, it's perspective. Because cooking is personal, it's routine, it's comfort, it's care. You deserve tools that support that, not quietly work against it. This isn't about fear, and it's not about perfection. It's about trusting yourself enough to look a little closer. You don't have to do everything today. You don't have to know everything right now. You just get to move forward, more informed than before. And sometimes that's how real change starts. Quietly. intentionally. If this made you pause, question something, or look at your kitchen a little differently, that's the whole point. This is Beyond Surface Level, the channel that questions what we're told and looks at what's hidden underneath. Much love, and I'll see you next Sunday.